Hi there, I'm Brian Keene, and welcome back to Secret Histories. If you are new to this series or you're joining us for the first time, what we do here is we sit on the floor in my office and we go through my books in the order that they were published, and I give you the history of each one, what went into its creation, perhaps where the idea came from, what, if any, impact it had on our genre and our industry. What my thoughts on it are all these years later. Um, if you are watching this on Patreon, you are probably wondering why we're looking at Darkness on the Edge of Town, because I already did a video for Darkness on the Edge of Town. Well, I was dissatisfied with that video. There's some stuff that I completely forgot to talk about, that I think should be included. So what I'm doing is a brand new video, a second take, as it were. The folks who eventually watch these on YouTube, this will all be new to them. But for you folks on Patreon, consider this the authorized secret history, and that original video will just keep up as a little extra for Patreon subscribers as well. So yes, Darkness on the Edge of Town, first published by Infernal House, which was a division of Bloodletting Press. Now, up until this point in our history, I would say a good 80%, 75 to 80% of my signed limited edition hardcovers have been published by Delirium Books. There were occasionally side ventures, Cemetery Dances edition of Kill Whitey and Shades by Jeff Cooper and myself, which we've covered before. Necessary Evil with Take the Long Way Home. And there were, a couple others here and there. The Rutting Season, Bloodletting Press, Tequila Sunrise. But the vast majority were published by Delirium. That had started to change by the time this book was published. We've gotten into that in previous videos, and we'll get into it quite a bit more in our next. But I was really, really happy with what Infernal House did with these books. They look gorgeous. There's the signature sheet by Alex McVeigh. It was limited to 174 signed and number hardcovers. Something you can notice from that and previous limited editions is that the print runs are starting to go down. That is because America is on the cusp of the Great Recession. And the market for signed limited editions is not what it was. And indeed, it never recovered. It never recovered. 174 is kind of the standard today. There's print runs even less than that. But yeah, very, very, very neat edition. You see what they did here with the framing and stuff. Before we get to some of the other editions, perhaps we should talk about what went into this book. I was in a bad place when I wrote Darkness on the Edge of Town. I was burned out. I genuinely felt that I could hand a publisher my grocery list and they would probably publish it. I felt like people was just collecting, buying my books as investment properties rather than things to read. My marriage was falling apart. My place in the industry was driving me batshit insane. Everybody wanted to be my friend. And maybe a quarter of them were genuinely sincere about it. Everybody else just wanted to fucking use me. I was in a bad spot. And what made it worse is I could see that horror was heading for another crash. Just like the one that took the genre down when my generation of writers started. And we talked about that all the way back in our early videos in this series for 4x4, No Rest for the Wicked, etc. I could see everything lining up. It was going to happen again. Problem was, I couldn't get anybody to listen to me. They all thought horror was just doing great. All of that went into this book. All of my paranoia, all of my distrust, all of my loathing, both for other people and for myself, my fears and anxiety over my marriage, it all went into this novel. I have never gone back and reread this book since its publication. It's one of the few that I haven't flipped through, which is funny because as I'm recording this in June of 2025, the book was just optioned by a major studio. Major people attached to it. I'm limited in what I can say about it at this point, but what amazes me is the entire team cites this as one of their favorites of my work, and I don't see it. When I look back on this book and I think about this book, all I see is what was going on in my life, and my life was a tire fire. There was darkness all around me. Darkness on the edge of town. Hell, it was darkness on the edge of Brian Keene. I felt very alone in it and very surrounded by it. And I guess I got a good novel out of that. We should talk about my nod to the mist in this book. I was finished the first draft. I guess I was on the second or third, maybe. And one of my pre-readers, I can't mention who, pointed out to me, this whole scene is like The Mist. And I realized, oh my God, they're right. So I rewrote it to have the characters reference The Mist. It's funny that in a weird bit of synchronicity, this was the first one of my books that Stephen King publicly praised, was Darkness on the Edge of Town. And he said, if you like The Mist, you'll love this book. So it's just funny how things work out. They also did this really, really special limited edition. I have shown this in other videos, but I'm showing it to you again now. I've taken the liberty of already unfastening it so we wouldn't be juggling that with one hand. Look at this beauty. Now that is Dez's magical sigil that he uses to keep Nodens at bay in the book. That was hand-drawn by me, and then Alex McVeigh did all the little extra things here. That's velvet. The teeth, I don't know if it's picking up on this or not, but those are like crystal. Red leather. Black leather inside. It's embossed. I mean, this is just gorgeous. You could actually, you can feel the texture of the teeth. They're sticking up out of the book. Let's pull him out. We should have used the ribbon, but we didn't. Yeah, more velvet down inside. Look at those end papers. I mean, it was just gorgeous. Just a work of art. And there's old Hylenius from Dark Hollow inside. So definitely one of my favorite of my limited editions. This one has a place of pride and joy on my shelf. I love showing this one off when other authors are here, or on a few occasions I've had fans come into my home. I love showing that one off. Of course, for an entire generation of you, you probably remember this version. Leisure Books. This was the last pleasant experience I had with Leisure. I was at the height of my popularity as far as they were concerned. There were no more squabbles over titles of books or content. The way it had become was I gave them 2 books a year, and they published those 2 books a year with very little editorial input. very little input from the marketing team too, because I was making them money. But that's a double-edged sword, because then you're like, well, fuck, are they only publishing me because I'm making them money? You would think I'd be happy that there was no editorial input, but in hindsight, it was a bad thing for me. I need that. So yeah, this edition did very well. It was a good seller for leisure. I think this went through 4 or 5 printings. Yeah, it did very, very well. Not as well as The Rising or Ghoul. Nothing ever did as well as those. A Gathering of Crows probably would have, and we'll get to that later. Unfortunately, it never got a chance. But this was a bestseller for leisure, this edition. And then there's another generation of you who came of age with the Deadite Press version. Now, in general, I like Deadite Press's covers. I love their covers for my books. I've shown you Dead Sea and Dark Hollow before, City of the Dead, The Rising. I love those. This one is not one I'm fond of. I've never been fond of this one. I don't think it does a good job of depicting the novel. I think hardcore extreme horror fans see this cover and they think that's what they're getting, and it's not an extreme horror novel. It's a supernatural monster novel. So I've never been crazy about this cover, but you win some, you lose some. But yeah, that's the Deadite Press edition. There have been several foreign editions. We're not going to go through them all, but I did want to show you this German paperback, which did very well back in the day. I believe this is out of print now. But yeah, Darkness on the Edge of Town. I was in a bad place, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and creatively. After this, it was a while before I could write anything novel length again. In fact, I immediately upon finishing this book, I hit a really bad wall of writer's block, which we're going to get into over the next few videos. That writer's block ended up being beneficial because it led to Castaways and Urban Gothic, 2 books of mine which many, many of you love. But those books came about because I thought I would try to write like some of my literary heroes, specifically for those 2 books, Richard Lehman and Edward Lee. And that was all a result of just the absolute depression I was under during the writing of this book. There were a lot of endings on the way, a lot of unhappy endings. And I didn't know it for sure at that point, but I must have sensed them psychically. Which brings us to the next book in our series, Unhappy Endings, which we'll talk about next time. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you, and I hope there is no darkness on the edge of your town. Peace.